Hi there, welcome back, and this is video 2 for the in-box review of the Wingnut Wings Gotha UWD in 30-second scale. In part 1 we looked at the kit parts and you could see exactly what was on offer there, which was just extraordinary. So here we've got the decal sheet and a very nicely produced bit of kit that is too. Obviously got classic markings with the crosses. Lots of little stencil details which I think are really nice. They're going to break up that enormous fuselage and structure, I think, quite nicely. So those all look to be beautifully produced, cartograph decals, lovely register and high quality, I'm sure. You can also see here the little parabellum cooling jacket, which is provided separately, plus a seat harness by the look of it. So that's a nice little bit of photo etch to there, and then moving on to the instruction booklet. Well, I've no idea if you've seen Wingnut Wings kits in the flesh before, but one of the real features, I think, of their kits are these beautifully produced instruction booklets. Classic style for Wingnut Wings, so you've got very clear labelling of the colours to use. You've got the colours so you can choose your own choice of paints, and then you've got references for Tamiya, Humbrol and the Federal Standard equivalents, which is, of course is always good. Moving on, you've just got each stage really cleverly laid out. In my experience, generally I think just to follow the instructions is a very good call to make with Wingnut Wings kits. They definitely come at this from a builder's perspective, and generally speaking, I've never found fault with the order of assembly, unlike the vast majority of other kit manufacturers' instruction sheets, which I think are almost next to useless, I'm afraid, in many respects. They give you some good hints, and some are much better than others, but invariably if you followed the construction sequence, you'd end up with all sorts of nonsense, really, in terms of trying to make joins after you've got sub-assemblies together and all the rest of it. So I'm not going to whinge on about those problems. Here, you just do not have that issue. You've got some lovely clear instructions, these lovely little droplet call-outs with the appropriate colour references on them, which I think are smashing, interspersed with some lovely pictures of the original parts of the real aircraft, which give you some really nice reference along the way to compare what you're doing with that. And then here you've got this continuing construction sequence, which is also neat because it does give you these indications here for different types of cabling that you might want to add if you want to go a bit further. And some of that is well worth adding, particularly here where you would be able to see it coming down from the main control column when you peer inside. Some of the other areas, I'm building the D5, the Albatros D5, and there's various sort of cables and things and pulleys that run up to the top wing, and honestly some of that I don't think you can really see too easily. It's definitely not easy to add along the way, so you may or may not choose to add it as you wish. Here we go. Here we are. These are these 10-kilogram Carbonate Bombs, little bombs here, and we saw these in the first video. Absolute racks of these things, which I absolutely love. You just well, I'm sure if you were on the receiving end, you wouldn't like them, but I think from a kit creating point of view, I think those are amazing. So those are all there. Moving on to these the enormous great fuselage section when it all goes together. Good references to the real thing, and then we move on to those engines. Beautifully produced Daimler Mercedes D3 engines, 160 horsepower jobs, absolutely terrific. Those are going to be a real feature on the model when it's finished, so definitely worth detailing, certainly the upper sections of those that are visible through the cowlings, and you can decide and choose what to leave off of the cowlings to perhaps show even more detail, more choice. And then we've got this fabulously sort of swept lower wing with the struts showing up through that up to, of course, join the upper wing to that. I love the fact that you get these pictures here that give you an idea of exactly how they should go together, but one of the features of Wingnut Wings kits is that those locating holes normally are very good. If you just add the struts exactly as intended, the upper wings normally drop into place quite nicely, which is good. Then moving on to those awesome twin floats, which sit below the airframe, of course. And then you've got the twin tail assembly as well. Now that's great, I think, just from a straight interest feature, because it's different to what we might normally expect with some of our projects. Here you see a couple of pictures of the real thing, but with the undercarriage fitted rather than the floats. And you just get an idea of this hawkish kind of like stance the whole thing's got, which I think is astonishing, really. Lovely pictures here of some of the real stalls and smaller items. And then the option, of course, to add that photo-etched cooling jacket to the Parabellum if you want to do that. You could, of course, replace the whole thing with a resin replacement. And then you've got the rigging diagram, which I love. Again, it's nice and clear where the rigging wires go. Bracing wires and control cables, and of course you've got them showing in different colours, which is neat. I like that. Again, and you just follow the diagram, really. It's as simple as that. Then we're into the colour choice options. So you've got broadly this overall sort of what appears to be kind of an O2-ish type. This is completely without reference, really, but just from what I can see in the diagram, sort of darker brown floats, forward fuselage, what looks to be a kind of an RLM O2E type centre section here. And then you can just check this diagram out here. You can just see, look, that beautifully swept back the wings are, as I said, giving for me anyway, this kind of slightly hawkish appearance. And you can see that much more clearly in the exploded colour diagram here for option A2. And then further reference pictures of the real thing here. Nice this, I like it, because you can just see that should you want to pose your model in water or representation water, I think that would be a really good option. You get a good idea of the sit here, of how it sits slightly further down and lower towards the back of the float centres at the front, so that's interesting. Beaching trolley option here as well, showing in the diagram, and then you just get on to a final few details. Well, what can I say? That concludes the package here for the Wingnut Wings Gotha UWD in 1/32 scale, and all I can say is awesome, really.